2 frogs fell in a can of cream, or so I've heard it told. The sides of the can were shiny and steep. The cream was deep and cold. Oh, what's the use, croaked number 1, this fate, no one's to help around. Goodbye, my friends, goodbye, cruel world, and weeping still, he drowned. But number 2, of sterner stuff, dog paddled in surprise, the while he wiped his creamy face and dried his creamy eyes. I'll swim a while, at least, he said, or so I heard he said. It really wouldn't help the world if one more frog were dead. An hour or 2 he kicked and swam, not once to stop and mutter. But he kicked and swam and kicked, then hopped out via butter. So in today's lesson, we're going to talk about frogs. Wait, no, that's not right. Butter. We're going to talk about butter. No, we're really not going to talk about butter either. Swimming and kicking and swimming? Yes. We're going to look at that indirectly. We're going to look at kicking and swimming. Today we're going to look at the activities of persistence and determination as we navigate ourselves through life. As we set sail to create lives of passion, fulfilling our dreams, our higher purpose, and how every now and then we fall into that can of cream. Today we'll start by looking at staying the course even when we get thrown a curve, as we move toward the highest vision for ourselves, which I believe, really at the bottom of my heart, our highest vision for ourselves is God's vision for us as well. Ernest Holmes believed that as well. In The Science of Mind, he says, anything that will enable us to express greater life, greater happiness, greater power, so long as it does not harm anyone else, must be the will of God for us. It's pretty powerful, isn't it? Wow. It's important to know that moving toward our dreams, our goals, and our visions is not always that straight line, right? It's not always upward without that break. We have some zigzags in there, right? Life does have to seem to have its ups and downs as we go through, and it does have its cans of cream to avoid if we can. Sometimes we feel that our lives are on purpose and that we're on track, and that our personal and spiritual lights are burning very brightly, don't we? I mean, aren't those days when everything just falls into place? And sometimes our light feels like it's a 25-watt bulb that's kind of flickering and on its way out. I've had that feeling, and we feel way off course. But when we feel like that 25-watt bulb on its way out, it's important to remember that we need to go back and get back on course, that we need to keep on keeping on even when we don't want to. We have to just keep doing it. Like I was saying last week, oh man, I was kind of in the dumps and I really didn't want to, just keep putting one foot, and I know the truth, and it wasn't until I plugged in those talks and the tapes and the CDs and I started listening to them. It's like, I don't want to. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, yeah, okay, but that's perfect. I'm going to repeat. That's a good mantra. Got me back on track, because it's so easy to want to stay where you are and not get back to where you were before you dropped down in that can of cream. An old football coach used to say to his team, what did he say? When the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. No, wait. That's what I say. When the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? We've heard that forever. And a couple of years ago, of course I do go shopping too, and that often helps, right, Suzanne? Yeah, see?
Yeah, whoever said money can't buy happiness doesn't know where to shop.
See? We're full of all of these great sayings. I love it. A couple of years ago, and by the way, shopping, I have to say, this was sort of my aha, and I don't know if this actually, it's just something to share as far as shopping, but we were at a friend's house, and they are inundated with those meat bees, and they have this little tennis racket that has batteries in it. Yeah, you have one of those? Yeah, I guess you get them at Walmart. But you push the button and it just zaps them. These things this vaporizes them. Oh my gosh, I haven't had so much fun in years. Anyway, we're heading to Walmart.
We don't like bees.
Oh, I don't. So I'm helping them go on to their next expression. I have no fear. I have no fear anymore of them. They're pretty fun, yeah. So
you're sending them on to better.
Pretty soon you can just do that without those
well, I know, and I'll just zap them with my hand, right?
No,
yeah.
just ask them to move on.
Well, and I do that. But this was.
Move to another location.
Yeah, go find another place.
If you actually start going and looking for bees, you might have a problem.
I'm not supposed to do that. Okay. Bee hunter. Yeah. No. Actually, I bless our bees because our bees are the ones that they pollinate all of our fruit trees and they keep our
Almond trees.
our almond trees and you know I even see them with my squash and my tomatoes and they're busy. They're busy and you know what, hummingbirds do that too. So that was. Yeah, I do bless them. But this was kind of an interesting experience. But a couple of years ago, there was a Hagar the Horrible. Does anybody read Hagar the Horrible? I read him, yes. And it showed Hagar the Viking and his sidekick talking. And Hagar says, I realize we're lost, but always remember when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I know, said his sidekick, but the second frame expanded to show that they're standing in a vast wasteland. And his sidekick says, but which way do we go? You know, it's always fun to go, but it's nice to know where you're going. We know that we go the way of God. We stay the course of light. So we do have a direction when we're feeling lost. We know that we have the tools of meditation. We know that we have the tools of our tapes and our speakers and our podcasts and our music. We can plug in one of our Karen Drucker tapes or the lady that was here just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
She's lovely. Jan Hodge. Oh my goodness, she was beautiful. We can play that, and that just lifts us right there. We stay the course of the light. And it's easy for me to stand up here and say this, but it's not always so easy to do because we're so easily lured off the course, aren't we? Isn't it easy just to, we'll start our day in a happy mood and then somebody cuts us off and boy, whoops, we're off course. We have an incredibly powerful metaphor for getting lured off of our course, and it appears in the biblical scriptures in Judges chapter 16. And it's the story of Samson and Delilah. Familiar with the story? A man named Samson was blessed with the gift of incredible strength. Right? Everyone knows how strong Samson was. His might was so immense that the Israelites depended on it to defend them against the oppressive Philistines. But Samson did as many of us do. He allowed himself to be lured off course. He was tempted, and he succumbed. Now, as I recount the story of Samson and Delilah, I want you to be thinking, what is my Delilah? What is my Delilah? What lures me off course? What gets me off course from fully expressing my God light? So be thinking about that as I tell the story. So Samson flirted with a woman in the enemy camp named Delilah. She asked him, Samson, how do you get all of that strength? He played with her, pretending to give away his secret, confessing, first, if he were tied with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, he would be rendered as weak as the next guy. So she tied him up just like he said, but he broke through the bowstrings as if they were threads. Next, he said, if they bind me securely with new ropes that have never been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. She bound him while he slept, and yet he broke free. The third time, if you weave the 7 locks of my head into the web of a loom, then I shall become weak. Of course, she did this, but to no avail. He was as strong as ever. Now, you think at some point, Samson would have figured out that this woman was bad news. But he chose to ignore the obvious. And how often do we ignore or indulge in the very things that get us off track? Yes, I'm one. Finally, after she pressed him daily with her words and urged him, his soul was vexed to death. And that's quoting actually from the Lamsa version of the Bible here. And he blurted out, if I am shaven, then my strength will leave me and I shall become weak and be like any other man. Delilah wasted no time in getting news of her discovery to the Philistines. Then she lured Samson to sleep on her lap and called for a man to shave his head. When the Philistines arrived, the weakened Samson could not fight them. They plucked his eyes out, and they took him to prison where he was harnessed to a millstone to grind grain. Wow, isn't that a great metaphor for each of us? For one reason or another, most of us get off course one time or another. But here's the deal. If you allow yourself to play with the Delilahs in your life, you will live at a millstone, grinding away, going round and round in circles, going nowhere with no vision. The eyes, no eyes. Now our Delilahs don't always come out waving banners, right? They don't, I am your destruction. Come on over. I'm your destruction. Here I am. They come out looking good. Samson's Delilah was gorgeous. She was a true temptress. Perhaps those things that get us off course aren't as good looking as Delilah. They may simply just be familiar or comfortable or habitual. But they can be destructive nonetheless. So earlier I asked you to be thinking about your Delilahs. What gets you off track? Anybody? What gets you off track?
Food.
Food? Yeah, well, it can. Yeah, definitely. Food? Anybody else have any ideas? How about reacting to circumstances? Coworkers. Seeing something on the news and just immediately losing that sense of peace you just had.
Taking things personally when I should just let them bounce off and not.
Yeah, taking an insult, being insulted. Yeah.
Then that we say live in the now. That's what we had.
Mm-hmm.
And you think back of things that you're not supposed to just forget them, but your mind.
Right. Allowing other people to affect you, their moods. You walk into a room and the energy level is low and you feel your energy going low. You haven't set up that shield. Self-destructive habits. Wow. I know I really shouldn't, be eating this Costco cake. I know, or this is the time I should be taking my walk around the neighborhood. We're shitting on ourselves. Seeing only lack. Wow, where's the money going to come from for this? Or I just don't feel very good. Concentrating on that. Being in the company of negative people, not doing our spiritual practices. Oh, I should meditate, but I just don't have time. That's a big one.
For me, it's
idiosyncrasies. Like
the weird things that people do that obviously are not the right things to do. They make no sense today, tomorrow, and they never will. But these people can't see it.
Yeah. So that can get you off track because you're thinking about what they're doing.
I can't believe they just did this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Unchallenged, unproductive belief systems. That's one I had. There you go.
Is that the end of Samson?
Well, I've got a little more to say about Samson. So how about the 4 agreements? Who's read the 4 agreements? Okay. The 4 agreements, I need to do a workshop on the 4 agreements. That needs to be one that I should do. The 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word. Impeccable. That means that what you say is true and you're careful with your words because your words have power. It's also, don't assume anything. Don't assume anything. How many times do we make up stories in our minds about, well, I know that the reason that she didn't get my appointment when it was supposed to be is because she knows my family and she doesn't like me. And it's all because I knew her little brother in the 3rd grade and I'm thinking, wow, how many times do we make these stories up about why somebody does something, and if you ever presented it to them, they go, what? We have these stories in our minds that may or may not be true, but it really doesn't matter. Don't assume anything. Go into it without assuming anything. Don't take anything personally. That goes right along with don't assume anything. Even if someone pays you a compliment, guess what? It's not about you. It's about where they are in their space. For them to be able to recognize how beautiful you are, they've been able to get in touch with the God beauty within them. So they're coming from their God beauty to see your God beauty. Just as if they go, well, what are you doing? And they criticize you, they're out of touch. It has nothing to do with you. It's where they're coming from. So those are our areas in the 4 agreements. The last one is always do your best, which is just, you know what? Some days your best is out of this world. And other times, it's all you can do to get through the day. But you did your best, and you should feel good about that. So that's where those 4 agreements come in. They're really wonderful. We read this book. It was our 2nd book in a 10-year book club I was in, and they were still talking about it at the end of 10 years when we dispersed it. And it changed their lives. So we will do a book study on that. It's wonderful. But back to Samson. He's got his eyes plucked out. He's lost his vision, just as we lose sight of of our light, our vision, and our goals. We disconnect from our vision, our light, and we veer off of our course that we've charted for ourselves. Something happened for Samson, however. He's grinding at the millstone blind. Who knows the rest of the story? Does anyone know the rest of the story here? As Paul Harvey used to say, surely he begins to realize that his hair is growing back. He's getting a second chance to let his light shine. During this time, the Philistines and their leaders, feeling pretty triumphant over having squashed Samson, ordered him brought back to their temple so they could mock him. Now, isn't that great? He's down and they're going to kick him. I love it. They order him to stand between two pillars that supported the temple, and Samson calls to God, "Remember me and strengthen me." He reaches out his arms with every ounce of his renewed power, and he brings the temple down, killing all of those within and himself. Samson, dying a triumphant death, did not abandon his people. In his final moments, he defended them as he never had before. He had fulfilled his destiny. Of course, the Bible's filled with, great metaphor stories like that. We always get that second chance, a third chance, and even a fourth chance. However many chances we need to get back on track. At any moment, we can correct our course and turn our attention back to our vision, our light. And just how can we do that? Ernest Holmes tells us, and he's referencing Matthew, if our eye is single, we shall be filled with light. We must cleave to the good and trust absolutely in the law of God to bring about any desired end. Spirit will mold our purposes when we allow it to do so. As we learn to depend more and more upon the perfect law, we shall find that the outward things which are necessary to our good will be provided. We shall be cared for as the lilies of the field which live directly upon the divine bounty, and yet they toil not, nor do they spin. So here's something I invite you to set your eye on. We are told in the biblical scripture in the first chapter of Genesis that we are made in the image and likeness of God, and that God looked upon its creation and said it was good. It was very good. What if you began to keep your eye singularly on that idea? Say this with me, if you will. I am made in the image and likeness of God, and all is good, very good. I am made in the image and likeness of God, and all is good, very good. Okay, now put your hands on your heart and say it again. I am made in the image and likeness of God, and all is good, very good. Okay, now put your hand on your heart and close your eyes and say it one more time. I am made in the image and likeness of God, and all is good, very good. Now turn to someone and say it to them. You are made. You are made in the image and likeness of God, and all is good, very good. Now look at that person one more time and say, I am made in the image and likeness of God. I am made in the image and likeness of God, and all is good, very good. Very wonderful. When we say that, doesn't it begin to stimulate things that you didn't even know were there? Doesn't that feel good within? Doesn't it just turn up that wattage a little bit on that light bulb? I have a light bulb that needs the wattage turned up on. How do we stay the course of light when we fall into our can of cream? We stay focused on this truth of our being. We trust that God is the only power, that God is good and wants good in every situation. We look for the good. We look for the good and we praise it in every situation. And we know that we are always divinely supported, always. I have this image of relaxing into the arms of Spirit that is so comforting to me at any time. I just love it. Listen to this prayer of faith by Hannah Morris Kochas. She says, God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God walks with me, guides my way through every moment of the day. I am now wise, I am now true. Patient, kind, and loving too. All things I am, can do, and be through the light of God that is in me. God is my health, I can't be sick. God is my strength, unfailing quick. God is my all, I have no fear, since God and love and light are here. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
It's Beautiful prayer. So you have a choice. When the Delilahs show up in your life and you fall into that can of cream, you can drown like that first frog, or you can persistently kick and swim with this truth, like the second frog did. And as always, the choice is always yours. And so it is.
So it is.